Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 13 and we would like to explain or we would like to present about our discussion results regarding the merchant of Venice. Before we start the presentation, I will introduce my team. My name is Nazilah Sabrina and there are Syafira, Iriana, Bahri and Asti Anggraeni.
The synopsis: The Merchant of Venice is a play by William Shakespeare, believed to have been written between 1596 and 1598. A merchant in Venice named Antonio defaults on a large loan on behalf of Bassanio, his dear friend, provided by a Jewish moneylender, Shylock. Character: Antonio, a prominent merchant of Venice in a melancholic mood. Bassanio, Antonio's close friend, suitor to Portia, later the husband of Portia. Gratiano, friend of Antonio and Bassanio, in love with Nerissa, later the husband of Nerissa. Lorenzo, friend of Antonio and Bassanio, in love with Jessica, later the husband of Jessica. Portia, a rich heiress, later the wife of Bassanio. And last, Nerissa, Portia's waiting maid, in love with Gratiano, later the wife of Gratiano, disguises herself as Portia's clerk.
I will explain about plot summary. So, Bassanio, a young Venetian of noble rank, wishes to marry the beautiful and wealthy heiress Portia of Belmont. Bassanio approaches his friend Antonio, a wealthy merchant of Venice, who has previously and repeatedly bailed him out. Antonio agrees, but since he is cash poor, his ships and merchandise are busy at sea to Tripolis, the Indies, Mexico, and England. He promises to cover a bond if Bassanio can find a lender. So, Bassanio turns to the Jewish moneylender Shylock and names Antonio as the loan's guarantor. Shylock is at first reluctant to grant the loan, citing abuse he has suffered at Antonio's hands. He finally agrees to lend the sum of Bassanio without interest upon condition. If Antonio were unable to repay it at the specific date, Shylock may take a pound of Antonio's flesh. And the next slide is sources. We have three sources. The first one is earlier sources. The forfeit of a merchant's deadly bond after standing surety for a friend's loan was a common tale in England in the late 16th century. The second is Thames, Shylock as an antagonist and Shylock as a sympathetic character. And last, we have date and task. The date of composition of the Merchant of Venice is believed to be between 1596 and 1598. The play was mentioned by Francis Meres in 1598, so it must have been familiar on the stage by that date. The title page of the first edition in 16 states that it had been performed diverse times by that date. And the next slide is performance history. The earliest performance, of which a record has survived, was held at the court of King James in the spring of 1605, followed by a second performance a few days later, but there is no record of any further performance in the 17th century. In the 1701, George Grenfell staged a successful adaptation titled The Jew of Venice with Thomas Betterton as Bassanio. The version, which featured a mask, was popular and was acted for the next 40 years. Grenfell cut the clownish gobos in line with neoclassical decorum. He added a jail scene between Shylock and Antonio and a more extended scene of toasting a banquet skin.
Adaptation and cultural reference. 1914. The Merchant of Venice, a silent film directed by Louis Weber and Philip Smalley. Weber Weber played Portia and Smalley. Her husband played Shylock. With this film, Weber became the first woman to direct a full-length feature film in America. 1916, The Merchant of Venice, an unsuccessful silent British film produced by Walter West for Broadway. 1923, The Merchant of Venice, Der Kaufmann von Venedig. Also, The Jew of Maastricht, a silent German film directed by Peter Paul Fellner. Though based in part on Shakespeare's play, it was also based on Christopher Marlowe's The Jew of Malta, as well as stories by Giovanni Fiorentino, Masuccio Salernitano, and Pietro Arentino. 1941, Shylock, an Indian Tamil language film directed by the duo Samaramo. 1969, The Merchant of Venice, an unreleased 40-minute television film directed by and starring Orson Welles. The film was completed, but the soundtrack for all but the first reel was stolen before it could be released. 1972, The Merchant of Venice, BBC video tape television version directed by Cedric Messina for the BBC's Play of the Month series. Cast includes Maggie Smith, Frank Finlay, Charles Gray, and Christopher Gable. Operas: Joseph Bohuslav Forster's three-act Czech opera Jessica was first performed at the Prague National Theatre in 1905. Adrian Wells Beecham, 15 years old, son of Sir Thomas Beecham, composed an operatic version which premiered at the Grand Theatre in Brighton on 18 September 1922, followed by 32 performances at the Duke of York's Theatre in London from 20 November to 16 December 1922. Augustus Milner sang Shylock, later replaced during the run by producer F.R. Benson. Although described in the vocal score as a Shakespearean opera, the play was perhaps better defined as a play with music, with 27 musical sections or areas. Reynaldo Hans' three-act French opera Le Merchant de Venice was first performed at the Paris Opera on 25 March 1935.
So everything clear? Thank you so much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.